Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Thank you very much for joining me in today's video. Now, if you are used to playing X-Plane previously or have played the older flight simulators, you will already know what this video is probably all about. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Chaseplane, which was made available for Microsoft Flight Simulator in December 2025, that is, and I have played around with it just a little bit, but there are things, lots and lots of positive things, particularly, as I said, for those of us who are used to or have played X-Plane before and the older Microsoft Flight Simulators. It brings back a lot of the functionality, a lot of the camera types, controls, things like that from the older flight simulators, but also brings in a whole bunch of other customizations. With that, though, it does bring just a few issues. So I'm going to be going through this, demonstrating it, showing you what it's all about, not just in this aircraft, but I might just jump into two or three aircraft and show you what it looks like on those aircraft, show you how to customize it, controls, setup, switching it on and off, limitations, and just having a look at what it does and does not do. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's get started and let's start flying around with Chaseplane. Now, of course, to begin with, that whole intro sequence was Chaseplane's cinematic camera. For those of you who have, I think X-Plane had a cinematic camera mode, and so did the old Microsoft Flight Simulator, at least some sort of it, but Chaseplane was also available all the way back then, and that's brought in some pretty nice cinematic cameras too. Now, as we are here in this aircraft, you've seen this aircraft plenty of times on my channel. This is the aircraft that I default to when I want to do some slow VFR flights, testing things out, having a look at scenery and things like that. It is the Just Flight Piper Arrow 3. Nothing looks different at all. But if we go over to, well, first off, if I try and go through my various different controls for different keys, for different camera views, none of them appear to work. And that is because when installing Chaseplane, one of the most recommended things to do, and Chaseplane can do this automatically for you with the backup of the original controls, is it will delete all of the camera controls, because Chaseplane is not an add-on to the cameras. It is a replacement camera system. And with that comes a small issue, and I'm going to show you that now, because this is the only issue that I've really found, and that is if we go into photo mode, which I do quite often, you can see that whilst I can move in and out, I'm not really able to look around. So I cannot turn. Now I can, or I have seen, hang on, there is some way of doing this. Nope, I cannot look around at all. And it is very, very slow. So that is an issue. Of course, there is a way around this, and that is by disabling Chaseplane. So I have got a disable Chaseplane key, and now I can look around and do whatever I wanted to do. Be very careful with this key, because I'm out of it. I'm out of the view, or out of camera mode. I have reset my view. If I now make an attempt to change, there we go, Chaseplane is now active again. If I go back into this view, and there is obviously a clash because I cannot move around properly. This is trying to clash with default camera controls and the Chaseplane camera controls. Be very careful. If I now try to change my Chaseplane view, it will crash the game. It will be a crash to desktop. That's the only big issue that I've found that does not appear to be mentioned on their website. The other issues about VR and things like that, checklists and whatnot, that is mentioned on their websites. I do not particularly see any of that as an issue. The VR one, obviously, if it is incompatible with VR, you need to make sure it's all disabled. The checklist one, I think that I read, was about it is unable to zoom in on the item when you select it on the checklist, which makes sense because it's a replacement camera system. So those are fairly big ones, but I think of little consequence if you work around them. But when you're in photo mode, so I'm not going to touch it. If I were to try and change my view, it will crash the game. So let's get out of photo mode, and I'll show you some of the views here. So just to give you a brief example, now I'm not using my keys at all for this. I'm actually using a hat switch. These are some of the different views in this particular aircraft that I have set up. And you'll see that it smoothly pans through all of them, back to front. Also, I can have a look outside. Here are some views, external views that we have for the aircraft as well. And I'm going to show you how all of these work. This view is the classical spot view that was available in the old flight simulators, never has been available in the modern ones. And this is a really good view. It's not, the aircraft is in the middle. It's just very easy to look at your aircraft, zoom in. This is the view that it really should be as the standard view, not what Microsoft or Asobo actually gave us. So how do we set all of this up? Well, let's go back inside. The first thing you need to do is to be able to get that external view working. You'll have to go to the settings, go to flight interface, external camera, and switch off the HUD. Otherwise, that external view that we were in, that one there, that view is going to give you an external HUD, and you can see this slight movement around. It's really subtle, but very useful. So let's go ahead and open up Chaseplane. So I'm using Parallel 42's Flow as well, and this is Chaseplane. So once you've installed it, it does give you a full tutorial, but it does take a lot of setting up. I think they recommend about 15 minutes for the setup. I would probably say that's about right, maybe even a little bit more. Before I do anything else, if you are interested in using the photo mode, I would recommend binding something to the application control. Now, the default control for that, the slash, is your landing gear. Doesn't matter to me because I've got a physical, I've got a controller which has the landing gear, and I've got a secondary landing gear as well, just in case I need it. So that keyboard binding is not needed. Go into your Microsoft Flight Simulator controls, delete the keyboard binding, and then put it to whatever you want. Of course, if you are not using this particular key, any other key, double check in your settings to make sure that it is the correct. You have got a key that has no other binding on it, or if it has, you have made sure that has been unbound. So there we go. You'll see my connected devices on the side. I can put dead zones, and then we've got some camera movement. So if I wanted to move around with Chaseplane, I can use left shift A, left shift D. There you go. WS. So these are the sort of standard controls that you would get on when you are playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it has been attached now to the Chaseplane interface and the Chaseplane camera systems. Left shift, I've not really done. Normally with zooming in and out, I use the mouse wheel, so I find that that's absolutely fine. And looking left and right is just left and right arrow, up and down. So gives you fairly comprehensive look around. But I managed to put the middle mouse button back on to recreate what Microsoft Flight Simulator has in general, or you can do space bar or right mouse button. All of those are available. You may need to set these, and to set them, all you have to do is go into that, and it will say whatever it's listening to. So in the case of the mouse, it doesn't normally listen to the mouse. You have to click on that, press and hold the middle mouse button, and it showed up, and that was it. If you press see how to avoid conflicts, it will tell you all the things that are bound that might be conflicting, so that's useful, but I do not need to do anything there, so that is absolutely fine. You can also have some camera actions, which is the different view. So this is how I've set the view. So I've got this on my little hat switch, so I can move through the different views. If I do down on the, so let's say, for example, let's take this view, and I've looked over here, press down with my hat switch, it will return me back to my to the initial camera position. And I'll show you how to set those camera positions up when we go through a bit of the setup. Also, internal and external camera view, again, you do not have to bind these to a flight stick or anything like that. If you have, for example, if you have a Stream Deck, is that what it's called? No. What's it called? One of those Elgato things might be called a Stream Deck. I'm guessing that now confused perhaps with a Steam Deck. Yes, whatever it is, with all the buttons that you can press, you could assign all your cameras to that. As you can see, I do not have a world camera, no assignment for the world camera, but that's fine. Then you've got quick looks, which are, you'll look over, and then when you let go, it looks back. So that's, again, something that you do have in Microsoft Flight Simulator as default. And you've got all of these controls that you can set up if you wish to do so. Then you've got your Chaseplane features, so cinematics mode, which I showed you previously. That is your I've assigned that to the minus key, or the underscore, dash underscore, whatever you want to call it. So that is what that is assigned to, and that allows me to go, as you can see, in and out of cinematics, and it's very fast. We have a torch, which we can toggle on and off. Obviously, at this time of day, it's not going to be very, very useful. And the binoculars, which I cannot remember which button I've assigned it to, so that's going to be awkward. Oh, there it is. It is that button, which is just a nifty little... I'm not sure if this is useful or not at this point in time. I'm going to have to test this a little more. So yes, I'll have to have a look at that. Perhaps something like flyby view and drone view might need some sort of a assignment as well. As I said, I haven't yet assigned absolutely everything. And then, of course, we've got application control, which I said I've only assigned the switching it on and off temporarily, because for the most part, I will be using X-Plane. I'm not going to go through view name shortcuts at the moment, because as you can see, what that requires is a camera, a view, or the title of the camera or the view to contain a specific word. You can use regex as well, but I do not have any of those. So that is something that I'll have to look at. Mouse look, as you can see, there is a lot of functionality to this. So we've got the scroll to zoom, which is that one right there. Pause motion and interaction. I'll show you why this might be useful, but I've got it switched off at the moment. And then we've got the smart view, and in all honesty, I probably will switch that off, because I do not recall ever using the smart view full stop. We then have control profiles. So these are the different cameras, or the types of camera that we have: internal, external, and world. And then it gives you what the settings for that camera are. So you've got rotation speed, moving position speed, yaw, whatever you want to call it, XYZ movement, zoom speed, speed boost, and also the weight of the camera. So it gives it some sort of inertia, and that is pretty cool. And then obviously you have one for the external, which can be different, and you could change all of these as you wish. So that is really useful overall. And then the general functionality, obviously enable, disable. This is what I've assigned: bound to a key, third-party plugin, start minimized. Cinematics I've got it as manually starting. You can have it start after a certain amount of time. So there you go, after a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, etc. So you can do that. I'm going to leave it to I'm going to leave it on manual because that's what I prefer. And then shot duration is how long it stays on a single shot, which is pretty neat. Then we've got some additional camera behaviors. So enable Chaseplane controls in slew, reverse X, Y, and Z, true center. So this is this spot view. So instead of it being slightly offset, which as it says gives it more cinematic framing, it is in the dead center. In fact, I should be able to show you that. So that's spot view. If I were to do that, there you go. See, it's just slightly offset, and then switch it off. You see that slight movement. So that is an option if you wish to do that. Toggling your head tracking off freezes the current position if that's something you are after. I need to test that. Reduce motion when stationary so it doesn't just shake around. I'll show you that as well. And then the binoculars that we've had a look at. Then you've got some backups and troubleshooting. So that's the gist of the preferences. But how do we actually set this up? So when you go to, in this case, main, you'll see a bunch of internal, external, and world cameras, or views. Each aircraft comes with its own, but you can download more if you wish to do so. So let's go, for example, to the pilot, and you'll notice that these are coloured in different colours. So these two are blue. These ones are like a light, very, very pale blue. We have green, and then we have purple. And that actually does mean something. Before we look into this further, let's go over to groups. And that's what these mean. So the blue ones mean that it's pilot. And you'll see it has head tracking and will be able to transition in and out. And the transition in and out is basically this movement. So instead of it snapping to the next view, it transitions in and out. We have pilot instruments, which is, as you can see, I'll go into one of these and show you what it works, how it works. These are any of the instrument views. So the light blue grey colour, that's what we're on there. It says current. Then we have hard mounted. So this one is a hard mounted one. Any mounted view in the cockpit or cabin. Again, I have got transitions on it. And then we have passenger, any passenger view. And that also has head tracking. And then I have no idea why we have that at the back. But there we go. So what's the difference between them? Well, you'll notice that here it says human smooth, human stiff, mounted stiff, human floaty, and mounted rigid. If we go to edit that, you'll see that we can select whether it's human or mounted, whether we want head tracking available for it, whether the transition I've shown, how quickly it transitions or how slowly. So for example, if I did want a really slow transition, there we go. That's a really slow transition. There we go. Nice slow movements. But I can bring that back down to that. And it's nice and fast again. So I think a quick movement is probably quite good. And then the camera physics. So this is what you're going to show. So we have firmness. You can have it smooth, rigid, or floaty. So let's just put it back to smooth, and it tells you what it is and how it works. So floaty is best for external cameras. Smooth is best for airliner, general aviation, and helicopter pilots. Stiff is best for acrobatic fighter pilots, and rigid is best for hard-mounted cameras. Then we've got the intensity of it and the touchdown effects. So that is, there you go, the camera physics during landing, so it'll have some shake, and the intensity of the overall physics with a typographical error right there. So I'll show you that once the aircraft has been started, and I am using a propeller aircraft intentionally for that because you will see a lot of it, and this is exactly what I am talking about. So motion effects. Engine thrust, rotor vibrations, speed brake vibrations, angle of attack vibrations. You're going to see this. Breathing, look ahead, anticipation, following the horizon. This just moves the camera in slight ways to show you what, or to try to replicate what a human would actually be doing. And then, of course, we've got the same sort of thing for this. So it'll have a different set of effects, and so on and so forth. And you can create as many groups as you want. So those were the internal ones. Here are the external ones, and you can do whatever you want with them. So going back to main, you can see that we have 2 pilots ones, some instrument ones. These ones for some reason are marked as instrument. Now, I do not want these as instruments. This should be fairly floaty. It's a passenger. So what do? I can press edit and change the group. So I'll go, not edit the group, change group, and set that to passenger. There we are. And I can do the same thing here. Go to the bottom, change group, set to passenger. Nice and simple. And then we have, that's what smart views are, right? Then we have the option of, well, it's going through every single one of these. Now, say I could delete, say I did not want that one. I could just go ahead and delete the view. I can do that. Say I did not want to delete the view because I might need it at some point, but I do not want it to show in my cycling. So what do? Well, let's go over to, which one do I not want? I definitely do not want the baggage compartment. Let's go ahead and say skip when cycling views on. There we go. Excellent. So now we have co-pilot, instruments, radio stack, center controls, EFB, full cockpit, passenger left, passenger right, which you'll notice did not transition. Notice that these transitioned, those 2 did not. And then baggage compartment, it skips. So let's go ahead and switch off the ones I do not need. EFB. I might need that. Ooh, don't save that. I might need the EFB at some point, but I do not need it for when I'm actually flying the aircraft normally. Instrument panel, not necessary because I use head tracking, so I can also probably skip that. Radio stack, that might be useful, so I might keep that there. Center controls, probably not useful once I'm flying the aircraft, so I can skip that. So I could go to it, I could assign a button to it, but I do not need it, so there we go. Full cockpit, that might be a nice one to see. And then we have passenger left, passenger right, which are snapping. Now, I'm not happy about the snap, so let's go and edit, but let's go ahead and edit the camera group. So let's edit the group and say transition in and out. There we are. So now, that's much better. Now, say I do not particularly like this order. I don't really want to go down to the radio stack when I might just want to go all the way up to that camera there. So all I have to do is click and drag, and that reorders it. So now I've got pilot, co-pilot, full cockpit, into the radio stack. Then I'll go over to passenger, and then back to the front. And I think that seems to work quite nicely for me. And I can do the same on any of the rest of these. So say I've got these passenger window ones for the external camera. Maybe I do not want these because I've already got this. So I could just go ahead and delete them. Or I could adjust them to do something slightly different. Maybe just looking outside, looking over the wing. So these 2 looking out like that. Perhaps I want this one to look over the wing and forward. So let's go ahead and try that, shall we? So we'll go ahead and edit it, and we can adjust. And then you get all these full control sets. So I'm going to say let's move forward. There we go. We are now outside. This is an external camera. And I'm going to rotate. So, that's roll. And of course we can just change this right here. Press 0 for that. There we are. And change that yaw. Face forward. Like that. Maybe. Zoom. Have it zoomed out. I'm just giving an example here. This is not particularly want to keep. So let's do that, and I will probably move this further out along the wing and move it slightly down, slightly forward, and actually we'll zoom it in a bit. And that is how you control your cameras, and then you can go ahead and save as you wish. But I'm not going to save this one. You can press save, adjust there, and of course we've got the options to change the group. So let's not save that one, and let's actually say we want these to be rigid. We want to change this and have this as a rigid. We want this as one of these hard mounted cameras. So there we go. That's now hard mounted, passenger window left. And that is now hard mounted, as if there is perhaps a GoPro or some sort of camera. Oops, did not do that. Some sort of camera attached to the window. Perfect. Excellent. That is that. If you wanted to share this view, you can switch it on and share the view with the community. And obviously we've got the options for having that in the cinematics as well. So we've got chase view, which will probably be in the cinematics, right? No, it isn't. So you could have the chase view in the cinematics. You can have, I think, the flybys in cinematics. Any views that you want to add to the cinematics, you could. Right, I'm not particularly keen on how that particular one is, so I'm going to adjust it. Move it back inside a touch, and then say save. There we go. And that was it. That is sorted. Now let's say we did want to create our own. We could just do create and go through all of those settings, name it, and do what you want. Or we can go to the community and we will see what views they have available. And we do not have to import them. What we can do is we can click that and view it and see what it is. So those two are pretty much the same. Let's just say I'm actually just going to go PA28 because a lot of them will be similar. So here we go. We have all of these. So we have that wing view by someone called Robert1649. I'm not particularly keen on that one, so I'm not going to have a look at it. That spot view is not bad. It's a very simple spot view, but it's not a bad one at all. I might want that. I'm not going to, but let's say I did. There's another wing view. A slightly different belly view. I think that's a fairly interesting one to have a look at. A tail view, a chase view, and whatever else we have. Now, in this aircraft, there is nothing else that I really need, so I'm not going to worry about that. Let's say I am now happy with what I have done. Great. Let's start the aircraft and actually show you this particular setup all working and Chaseplane actually working. I don't know what that just did. Right. So beacon on, that's on. I can go full. Grab that. We'll just go ahead and get this aircraft up and running. Very, very quick start here. Good, that will do. And you'll notice immediately we have a shake going on. Look at that shake. Now if I switch Chaseplane off, in fact let's bring this pretty low down so you really get to see it. There we go. Now if I switch Chaseplane off, you should see that this will, there you go. There's that little amount of shake, but that's it. Switch it back on and we've got a lot of shake, a lot of movement. Now this is not just on this aircraft. Every aircraft will will have it. It's just a matter of how strong it is. So let's say we think it's a bit too strong. We could easily get rid of it by changing the settings, but I'm going to leave it like this so that it's quite easy to see and to notice. Now, one of the things that I have done for this particular aircraft is I have set a camera, a hard-mounted camera, which is this one here, and this one I've actually set it so that it has a gimbal, and we're going to see what that gimbal is like. And also you'll notice that this one has no head tracking, so that's also really, really nice, because I can have certain cameras with head tracking, certain cameras without head tracking, without me having to actually switch off my head tracking device. That's nifty. So let's go ahead and get ourselves taking off. I don't think this is the runway, but it's fine. The runway's just across from here. And let's say I wanted to see this from a passenger view there. Look at that. So you get to see it from a passenger's perspective too. Now, I'm also going to show you some very fast movement. You see that that slight movement across, and I'm going to brake really, really hard. And you see that push forward. Now, all of this can be customized to your desire, however you want to have it, and the views can be really useful. I say are very useful, can be very useful. They may not be for everybody. What we'll do here is we'll just do a very quick circuit. We'll climb up to about 1,000 feet. We'll do a fairly quick circuit here. Right, winds are about, got a crosswind maybe 4 knots. Looks like it. 6 knots. Okay, so here we go. Ailerons into the wind. Just get ourselves in the air. Now you'll see that bounce that we have as we're rattling along the runway. Very, very well done. Perfect. Positive rate. Gear up. Go perhaps, should we go flaps in? Let's go flaps in. See that slight movement as well as the flaps come in. So all of that is really, really quite good. Again, we can go out here and watch the takeoff from this view if we want to, and then very quickly move back to the views that we need. And that's really, really useful. It's smooth. It works exactly as I expect it to work. And what I'm just going to do here is I'm just going to climb out to 1,000 feet. We'll stabilize, and then I'm going to switch to another camera. There we go. You know what, 900 feet will do. And we'll slow it right down. We'll trim it up. There we are. Okay, so normally if we go into a turn, you'll see that the camera turns with us. So we'll just do, again, just a gentle turn here, 15 degrees of bank. Let's go for, yeah, about 15 degrees of bank. And we'll turn in until we are, let's just say, due west. Because I think we took off runway 18. Winds are out of 160, so that was fine. I see, coupled with what do you call it, Chaseplane, the head tracking works incredibly well. And now let's say I did want to go into cinematic view. Hey look, now we're in cinematic view. And I can fly the aircraft in this view as well. Now obviously you have to be quite careful whilst flying the aircraft in this view. But that is Microsoft Flight Simulator right there. That's old school Flight Simulator with the flyby views and the cinematic views. So I think that's really, really quite good. Now, let's move over to this view. Hard mounted camera. So now I'm going to turn, watch what the camera does as I make this turn. Because it's set on a gimbal, the actual aircraft looks like you can see the turn of the aircraft and the angle of the aircraft as opposed to it moving in with you. That's pretty cool. And of course I can still control the aircraft. I'm messing around with the mixture there. I can still control the aircraft as if I was flying it from the pilot seat. And that's another really cool thing to see. Very, very neat. And then without any issues, we can go back to where we were. Let's speed up just a touch. We are dropping a little. I'm not particularly keen on that drop. We can go over to external view. There we go. Just jump from view to view without any issues. That's a nice view. So if we wanted to fly around from this chase camera, we could do. Want to fly around from the good old spot camera. This is very much now just going back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2, FSX, FS 2004, FS 2002 for me. And then back to the internal view without a single issue. It's very smooth. It doesn't. There is I will say there is perhaps sometimes the odd hiccup like that as maybe the reflections load in, but that's really Microsoft Flight Simulator doing that. Not Chaseplane. It's just the speed at which it loads up. So that is Chaseplane pretty much in 40 minutes. That is how Chaseplane works. But as I said, there is more to it. So you could add as many cameras as you want. You can group it. You can, for example, let's do this. There's a bit of stutter there. Let's go to the pilot group. Let's really mess it up a bit, shall we? So edit the group, and I'm going to say let's make it very floaty. Okay, there we go. We now have floaty with ridiculous intensity. There we are. And you can now see it, and if I were to make that smoother, there's the intensity of the... I think that's quite obvious how intense that is. Rigid obviously is that is like standard Microsoft Flight Simulator. That standard Microsoft Flight Simulator view right there, very rigid, and floaty is, as you can see, quite obvious. Let's bring that back to smooth. Let's bring this back down to 1. The intensity was 1, wasn't it? We'll bring it back down to 1. There we are. So if you want to change that, that is completely up to you. Let's go ahead and land this aircraft, shall we? So I can show you some of the landing effects. Don't actually know where the airfield is anymore. Should be fairly close to it still. There it is. Lovely. Right, we'll just go ahead and line up for that runway and land. So we'll slow the aircraft down. Props up. That's up. Swap tank. No, don't do that. That was odd. That's not supposed to be able to do that. I'm going to figure out what... You should not be able to switch to fuel off like that. I've never been able to do that before. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Right, so let's go ahead and drop the landing gear. Let's see if it gives us any more air resistance. Does it make the camera shake more or not? There's a bit more shake, but it could be because we're going over some tree lines here. So go ahead and slow down. We'll take one stage of flaps here and try to remember where the wind's coming from. Of course, I do not really need to remember because I have Flow, and Flow Pro has... Which one is it that gives me the winds? Is it that one? No, it is. That tells me where it's coming in from. Perfect. So if I wanted to take a quick look, I can just do that. I'm not going to worry about that yet. So it does, yes, this does add an additional level of realism to and immersion to your flights. And I do think it's really, really good, particularly when you are flying a large aircraft, a commercial jetliner or something, through the air, or an airliner. It doesn't have to be a jetliner, it could be a prop. When you're flying through, you know, on a longer journey or something like that, I think that having that cinematic view and setting up additional cinematic cameras would really, really bring, particularly to content creation, would really breathe new life into it. Because something about Microsoft Flight Simulator's camera has always been a bit problematic, in my opinion. Both 2020 and 2024. And Chaseplane just helps that. Really improves it. Whoa. So it's slightly into the wind. Not quite not quite what I wanted, but still 80 foot per minute. That's not too problematic at all. And of course, now that we're back on the ground, you have the wobble, in fact. And then if we brake, you'll see that. Now let's go off onto the grass and let's see how much wobble we get on the grass, shall we? That's pretty good. That is pretty good overall. Excellent. Well, let's jump into where have I found myself now? Let's jump into a different aircraft very quickly and take a quick look at that. So we'll just go and press end flight, go back here, hope that this takes us where we want it to take us. It does. We ended up there, wherever that is. And I'm going to let's go ahead and I'm just switching a few things on because I'm going to select let's select the Avro RJ. So I've flown this plenty of times. I'm just going to make sure that I have these controls awkward as they currently are for me. I'm going to try and make sure that they are okay. British Airways, obviously, let's do that. And we'll go over to save and exit. Let's move over to Birmingham Airport, why not? And we'll just set ourselves up at the runway. Yeah, we'll just set ourselves up at the runway. It's that runway we want. And start. So hopefully I've got these. I'm probably going to switch. So that taxi's off. Switch on. Yep, that appears to be everything switched on as it should be. It'll take a couple of minutes to load. Well, actually not a couple of minutes, but some seconds. And then we'll just sit on the runway, and we'll set up some Chaseplane controls and see what it is like with this aircraft. I was going to check out the Phoenix A320 as well and the PMDG 777, but I think that's going to make quite a long video. I'm assuming loads of people will have created cameras for this, and you've seen, if you've watched my videos before, I do like to fly this aircraft quite a bit when I'm doing, because I do short hops. I'm expecting that none of my custom cameras will work, but I'm expecting there to be a set of default cameras ready for this particular aircraft. That's what I think, anyway. It's a bit dark. We'll set up, but honestly, we'll.
Birmingham Tower, Speedbird 201 Bravo Alpha Whiskey 201.
Yeah. You can just be quiet. Okay, so we are here. Flow has loaded. Because that compass keeps coming up, and I have no idea how to stop it from coming up. The stopwatch, sorry, as default. It's a bit annoying. Okay. So my first view, I have this. If I try to change view, what do I have? I have some views. Instruments, center, that's useful. That's really useful. Again, no head tracking on these. So these are the old. Oh, there are more. Here we go. We've got more. So that's a view that I did not have before. That's a view. That's a nice view. That's a nice view. These ones all have head tracking all the way down. I can just go through these different. That's lovely. Wait, do those? Have I ever pressed? I have never pressed these before. I have never ever pressed these before. Right, so from this I've actually learnt that there's something new, and this is just me going through all the various controls, and I haven't even set up Chaseplane. I'm just going through them one at a time. So let's have a look at the external camera, shall we? So we have that camera, engines. No, ooh, that's a nice view. That's an interesting one. That would be nice if the lights were off, I guess. Each wing, landing gears, slightly tilted tail, and then back to where we were. Cool. Let's have a look at the cinematic view for this. So this is what I mean with Chaseplane has defaults ready for you. I wasn't expecting that. I'll be honest, I was not expecting that many. But clearly it decided that was what was needed. This looks really good. Also, is the runway slightly wet? Possibly. Is it only those 2 cameras? It might just be those 2 cameras. We could set up additionals if needed. Oh no, there's another one. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And of course, if I now wanted to, what I could do is let's lower the flaps. Is that actually lowering the flaps? No. Maybe that's not the right mode for that. Let's go. Oh, there's so many views now. Now at this point, obviously, I would have to. Oh, that was lowering. That did have the flaps lowering. So we could go out into cinematic mode, and yes, you do see the flaps lowering. Okay, cool. So let's go back in all the way up here, and let's have a quick peek at. I don't know why I'm going up there. I can delete that now. This is where I need to go. It'll take me a while to get used to using flow. There we are. Look at that. All of those. Now, say, okay, no, I would probably want all of these. But it might be a good idea for me to set up a control to jump to a group. To say, okay, I want to quickly go to the pilot group, or I want to quickly go to the passenger group. So in case I am here, I can very quickly, instead of me having to go through all of this, just by pressing a very quick control, I can go there. And that would be that's the sort of thing that we would have to consider. Now I'm not going to do that just now. So that's what those are. We can also have a look at tower view. Just good old classic Microsoft Flight Simulator tower view. We have the flyby view, of course. We have the drone view, which we've seen. Nearest runway, nearest parking, and of course, if we want any of the other bits, let's have a look at what else there is. No, do not create a camera. Community. Let's have a look. So we have cockpit door, if we wanted. We have the audio panel. That's a different one. First officer seat we've already seen. We've seen that one. I think we've seen a couple of those. Overhead panel we've had a look at, but that has head tracking enabled with that one. The doors, mid-wing, I think we've seen that as well. Com panel, slightly different angle. FMC on the right, if you wanted just that. On the left, glare shield. That's again a slightly different view. EFB, that could be a useful one. That's really bright. FMS, so we've got a similar one to that, and whatever else we want to have a look at. So that overhead, for example, that overhead panel one might be more useful than the one we have. So let's go ahead and click that and press import. Now we have it. Go to main. There it is. I can drag that to. Let's drag that there and do a test. So lower overhead panel, upper overhead panel, or just overhead panel. And honestly, just the overhead panel might be good enough for what I want to do, because when I do this, I'm either looking at it, so I'm either here and using head tracking and looking up, or I want to be able to see the entire panel. So there we go. That's great. And then say again, I do not want to get rid of this yet. I'll just select skip when cycling views, and same thing for this. We'll do skip when cycling views. And so now it will go instrument panel, center console, forward center console, engine controls, full overhead panel. Seems good to me. Right, let's go ahead and do a takeoff, shall we? So I don't think we've really got the trim up and running properly, so let's just retrim this aircraft. we'll set flaps 18. Yep, we'll do that. So we've got 146 on that. We're just going to, in all honesty, we're just going to fly. This is going to be how this video ends. We'll even, do you know what? Let's even change the time of day a little, shall we? Just so that we get to use the cinematic view up in the air. Now that's not what I meant to do. Still getting used to it. Time, there we go. There we are. Let's do that, shall we? Okay. Ready to go.
Check thrust. Thrust set.
Look at that
Airspeed
shake. So, I think that shake might be just a little too much for this particular setup.
80 knots.
So I might go ahead and remove that. And that's every bump that we're going over. That's pretty cool though.
Go. Rotate.
Whoa, it's not in trim.
Positive climb.
This aircraft is not in trim for some reason. I'm sure it was in trim, but
Gear up.
okay,
Select.
gear up. Yep, this aircraft is not in trim. Because it should not have lifted up like that. Oh well.
Gear up. Lights out.
Now, of course, this is where we have the whole, well, I've got to go through all of this if we want to get to a passenger view. There is a passenger view, but I'm not too confident on doing that just yet. Yeah, see, that's a lot of views. I think we'd need to do a little bit more to this. Now, let's say I set this to, let's just say 10,000 feet. We'll do altitude hold, autopilot engage, heading, we'll do current heading, and we'll do speed 200. This is not how you fly this aircraft, by the way. I'm just going to point that out. Auto throttle is armed. £1,000 ft/minute. That seems, yeah, that seems okay. That seems perfectly all right. And let's actually go to one of the cameras at the back. There we go. And we can watch, in fact, let's go to, not that one. Sure, this camera. And we'll go flaps up. And we get to see that from there, or from there, or from there. It's a decent view, or from there. But again, the issue is, the issue you will have will be the whole getting the camera for this. Now, we could then go over to cinematic, now that we've got the autopilot running. And this is the sort of thing that it probably works best for. So I do not have to worry about flying the aircraft right now when we're trying to get really nice views. Of course we could, I think, do I have control over the lights still? Maybe. Going to have to find out. Ooh, flyby. That wasn't something I was expecting. That's a good old flyby camera. Quite a distant flyby, I'll admit, but trying to figure out which lights do what on my setup. But yes, that is Chaseplane. And go back in. There we go, lights are out. So I could, if I wanted to, look, I can just switch them, whichever one it is, switch them back on. There we go. On, off. And I do think that does show in, yeah, there you go. It does show in the cinematics view. So that's a cinematic camera to really look at. It's a great cinematic camera. That's a really good cinematic camera too. Can I zoom in on these? No, these are more fixed. And back inside we go. That's a nice little camera to look at as well. So okay, look, we want a turning, heading of that, and then into a cinematic camera we go. Smooth, useful, great for getting your content. Well worth a purchase. Definitely well worth a purchase. And with that, I'm going to end this video. So thank you. I need to go inside, that's really loud. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to click on the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Leave a comment in the comments box below, letting me know what you think, any suggestions you might have. If you can do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, checking out my Discord, and going on to my social media. Of course, that is if you wish to do so. Your support on any of them would be greatly appreciated. That is all from me. I think Chaseplane is great. And apart from the few niggles, as I said, with things like with things like photo mode not working with it, causing it to crash the desktop, aside from that, it works incredibly. You're seeing it right here. It works incredibly smoothly. So yes, definitely worth a purchase. That is all from me, and I shall see you next time in Microsoft Flight. Can I zoom in on these? I can. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, where I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I think I might have a third add-on from Parallel 42 to check. Yes, I do have a third add-on. So I'll be taking a look at something called, oh look, an old airfield. Sorry, something called Typical Weather, which should be interesting. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time.